You know, people always ask me, how did I get from the mountains of Colorado to Alaska? And it's really pretty simple, three words: mountains, mining, railroads. The same three things that I've delighted in writing about in Colorado history and history of the American West, I've really found in Alaska in superlatives. Mountains, my goodness, the tallest mountain in North America, Denali. Great stories like the Duke of the Abruzzi climbing Mount St. Elias at the turn of the 19th century. And of course, mining rushes. Everybody thinks of the Yukon, and the Yukon actually is in Canada, but Alaska's story with that is really one of travel and journey, people getting across the breadth of Alaska to the Yukon. And of course, Alaska also had some other great gold rushes to Nome and Fairbanks, and other minerals as well, copper. Copper is what built Kennecott, and of course what Kennecott meant was the Copper River and Northwestern Railroad, which ran from the Gulf of Alaska up to the copper mines. My goodness, 10% of that railroad was built on bridges, so that gives you some idea of how difficult the terrain was. And then there's the White Pass in Yukon, and of course Alaska's own railroad, kind of the railroad that really symbolizes the state in my mind. The Alaska Railroad completes the triumvirate of Alaska railroads. So there you have it, mining, railroads, mountains. Those are some of the things that I've really been interested in terms of Alaska's history. I just never tire of traveling that country, and fortunately I was there again this past summer in Alaska's Brooks Range. My wife and I and two friends were flown into a lake on the north slope of the Arctic Divide, and then we hiked south for some 70 miles past the rugged summit of Mount Dunarak. This is Bob Marshall country, and like Marshall, we enjoyed some of the absolute best weather that I've ever been out in, and some of the worst. Oh, and of course there's the story of the bear who tried to come to dinner, but fortunately didn't stay. Whenever I mention that I've written a history of Alaska, people usually want to say something about James Michener and his great novel, Alaska. And of course, Michener, as always, is a wonderful read, but I usually respond by reminding people that it is, after all, fiction, and that frequently I find the true stories of the people, the events, the landscape, far more riveting and fascinating than even the most compelling fiction. So I recommend the true history of Alaska in a nonfiction sense.